Welcome to another episode of the Tech Vault with Mitchel Sellers. Today I'm introducing a new segment that will most likely be a regular recurrence here, which is customer horror stories. And to introduce this concept, I've invited Laurie from the Social Bark to join me today so we can talk about a mutual situation that we recently experienced. Welcome, Laurie. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do at the Social Bark?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Mitch. Thank you very much. I've got to say, I'm liking the shirt. I feel like I should have something different on, but we'll roll with it. So yeah, great to be here. The Social Bark, I help small businesses create authentic content. Started about 5 years ago when COVID hit, and I realized that a lot of small businesses were struggling to tell their story online at a time when they really needed to have an online visible presence. So started the Social Bark and really have expanded into authentic content creation. Not just content that you post, it actually helps convert into business revenue, which a lot of customers struggle with. So it's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking about our horror stories and some things that happen online. So thanks again for having me here.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you. The idea for today, talking about domain ownership horror stories, kind of stems from one of our mutual clients. As somebody that works with social media, right? You often work with non-technical folks or folks that maybe have a domain name, but they're not as in tune to all of their technical
Right.
wherewithal. And so sometimes that means they may not know where things live or how things are owned or who pays for what. Why don't you start out, kind of explain a little bit of the backstory of our mutual customer and how things came to be for us, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. I think so many people, our customers, certainly appreciate our level of expertise, but don't know themselves exactly what's happening behind the scenes. In the case in point of a domain, and for those people that maybe don't understand what a domain is really it's where your URL lives and where it's hosted. And this particular client had a very robust business that had been in business in excess of 15 years and suddenly learned horrifically that she no longer had control of that URL that was where people would go to her website. So obviously that's a horrible thing to have happen, especially after 15 years in business, and really didn't know what to do. So I think maybe pinning it back to you, Mitch, let's talk about what happens when you lose control of that domain. It's not just a matter of resecuring it. That's best case scenario. But in this case, we'll talk about what happened. And unfortunately,
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And losing access or losing control comes in so many different forms, and there's different levels or stages of where it can be a problem, right? If you simply forgot your login, which is a common thing, or forgot where you registered it, that can be a pain, but we have processes, right? If you forgot where you registered it, we can go look it up. Okay, it was registered with GoDaddy. We go to GoDaddy support, we whine, we complain, we say that we own it, we provide proof that we own the domain or own the business, or, oh, it was our email address, we just needed to do a forgot password. Okay, we can get in. Those are the easy ones. The situation that we ran into with your customer is probably the worst situation that you can have, which is the domain registration expired. It expired for more than 30 days. So one of the things that happens with these small businesses is they don't always visit their own website, right? They assume their website's up and running. So the website actually stopped working for a period of time. Nobody noticed it. The domain, you have a little bit of a grace window to do your renewal. They didn't get it renewed. And one thing led to another, and a malicious actor went out and registered the domain name, a virtual squatter, if you will. And that's when things start getting really, really complicated. And one of the things that we always kind of look at is, well, how does this happen? And that's why a couple weeks ago on here and through other channels, I've been talking about, the business owner, the non-truly tech person, and what you should own of your business. And at the end of the day, your customer, right, didn't get any of the email notifications about their domain registration expiring because they didn't register it. it wasn't in their account. They had trusted a vendor, and that vendor was managing that renewal for them for whatever reason. And I don't think we ever found out why.
No, we
right?
didn't actually. No.
That vendor never renewed it. So the vendor got a notification, and it depends on who you have it registered with, right? You get notifications. You get it renews in 30 days, it renews in 15 days, it renews in 10, it renews in 7. Like, you get multiple emails. Those are all ignored. Nobody told the customer anything. And that's kind of where we got. So now we got into this really interesting piece. And right, what was the customer's first question for you? Right, was what next, right?
And what next? And can I just get it back? And unfortunately, it's not that simple. And you bring up a good point about we're thinking this vendor is just going to be taking care of it. We're not getting personal notifications, and how important is that? As we know now, what happens if someone at the vendor is just that person is no longer there, or the vendor goes out of business or something? We're kind of just trusting our entire livelihood, our businesses, in hopes that this is just getting done.
Exactly. I liken a lot of times to it's keys to the castle, right? Your domain registration is almost the same as having the keys to your safe. It's the keys to your checking account. That's your business identity. Right. And if you're not technical, that's fine. Grant access to others. Use trusted sharing mechanisms to do that. That's what we do with all of our customers, because I don't want that liability, because what if I miss the email? Right. And so it's one of those things. Now, it's interesting, though, because the domain was squatted on. Your customer took a little bit of a different route on her own before she came to you, though. And I'm a little curious, and I know we didn't even talking about this, but I think it's important. She tried to come up with an interim solution. And what was that? What did she think of? Like, okay, so I can't get my domain back. What did she do?
Well, she did a slight variation on the actual name of the former website, in hopes that would direct people to her. But ultimately, people were still going to the old page, which was now defunct. So it looked ultimately like that she could be out of business, which is catastrophic. So she did an attempt, and it wasn't bad. I mean, she did an attempt to just keep that business going by still having a website, even though it wasn't the one she had for 15 years.
Right. And during that, right, she had other costs. She had to update letterheads, business cards, marketing materials. If she had paid advertising, right, all of that stuff has to get updated. I mean, just think here, we got domains and everything listed. And so it's kind of interesting when we talk about, like, what do you do, and where do you go? It was a great idea. It was something quick, right? She could go out, and I think it was Wix.com might have been used. And,
I actually had
a website, register it, get it done. And so it was absolutely good. But then all of that SEO value, all of that marketing value, all of those backlinks, the social posts from before, everything, right, we're going to a dead space. So now that's where it kind of gets interesting. And one of the things that we were kind of talking about is, okay, so great. We've already talked kind of ad nauseum a bit about preventing this from happening. And you can go back and look at the prior video I have from a couple weeks ago to learn more about that. What I really want to talk about is, what do we do, right? What happens, or what can we try to do when we have lost control of that? We've got a squatter sitting out there, which I believe the squatter in question for this scenario was asking for something in excess of $25,000 or $30,000, I think, to get access.
Yeah. I actually had two instances where this happened. So there was very similar too. Both clients ended up having to do something. We'll get into that. But in one of the instances, there was just no response at all. And then in the other one, there was a request for an exorbitant amount of money, which is what these squatters do. So it's certainly a challenge. And if you're a small business owner, you may not have the funds you need to get this name back.
Yeah, it brings up an interesting point, right? So some of the squatters, they're out for one thing, they're out for money. Some of the other squatters or people that do it might be at it for a competitive advantage. They might be at it for a different reason. And One of the things that I get a lot from the technical side is, but that's my company name. How can they take it? Right. And so people always ask, well, what are my legal options? Right. Can I get a trademark? Can I do this? And can I do that? We've had some experience with this, and there's an organization called ICANN, and ICANN overall is an organization that you can file, and it's the only way to file a formal dispute. So you can actually go out and say, somebody took this, it was mine, it's my business, and you have to establish a burden of proof. What's interesting from my perspective is it's a legal venue. It's a legal mechanism for you to do it. The problem is it doesn't guarantee everything.
Right.
A trademark helps because that provides proof, right? That, oh, that name is my name, right? However, time is of the essence. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we see in business. And I'd love to hear from you, from a social media person that is helping these folks, right, go out and build brand awareness on Facebook, brand awareness on LinkedIn, and all of this kind of stuff. So you do all of this work and you spend thousands and thousands of dollars over multiple years, and you've built all of these links. You go to LinkedIn, you see the history of the people's websites, and those links are going back to pages, they're going back to things. All of a sudden, poof, that's all gone, right? The LinkedIn content's still there, but all of those links are dead.
Right.
Talked a little bit about it earlier, but it's that brand damage, right? Of like, are they still in business? But how quickly does that become a problem? And that's, I think, where this whole legal dispute thing becomes really interesting, is how quick do you see damage to promotion postings, social reach, website visits, and search when you all of a sudden lose all of that historical content?
Well, I think it's immediate, because I mean, if the people are clicking on links that bring them to a page that's no longer there, I mean, that, what goes through your head? Okay, the person's no longer in business, or they're putting up a link on social media that doesn't even work. Why would I want to work with that person? I mean, the damage is immediate. And then if you have to go out and build a new site, now your algorithms are all gone. I mean, all your push to the top of Google, it's all gone, because you're starting with a whole brand new page. And you and I did talk about that trademark, because that's something I asked you about in terms of the social bar, because I am trademarked. But, God forbid this should happen to me. It's not full protection from what you're telling me.
Yeah, absolutely. And the process, the ICANN claims and things like that, exactly how long they take is a little bit unknown. Sometimes you can get through fairly quickly, depends on how high profile you are, and that kind of thing. But then you still have to go through all of those motions, right, to relinquish control. And one of the things that was really unique in my mind with your customer, especially, that was maybe a little bit better than some of the others. Your customer, yes, operationally speaking, her marketing website was gone, but she was still using a Gmail address for her business email. And traditionally, we don't recommend that, right? Like, my email is at iowacomputergurus.com. And in my case, if I lost access to my website, it's not just my website. If I lose that domain, I now no longer have any email communications. So this instantaneous shutoff, when this happens, for many organizations is even worse. And so that's where, like, as I look at this, as we start to drive in and look at these horror stories, it's interesting to kind of understand what could happen. Now, your customer was using a vendor that didn't do the renewal. There was an expectation, right, that the vendor should have renewed.
Right.
This all happened over 6 months ago, right? And she's done things. She did rebranding. She's incurred all of those costs. She's trying to go back to that vendor, right, for some assistance. We're 6 months later, right? We're half a year, if not more, if I remember the dates. Where is she at? Has she gotten anything? Has she made any true progress with that prior vendor?
That's a lengthy process, and there's going to be, it's going to take a long time. And in the meantime, the repercussions and the damage continues to build. So, you're going back and forth. Are you getting legal counsel involved? What's that cost? Who's going to pay it if you lose? So I think more importantly, and I know you've got some great advice, what should a person do right now who's still got their domain? They're in good shape, but we don't ever want this to happen to them.
Well, I think that's where all of the things that we continue to talk about become important. Own your assets. Is it easier for you to pay a vendor to just do everything? Is it easier for them to manage a credit card and you pay one person, maybe for your hosting, for your domain and everything else? In some ways, yes. But the key to the castle, that domain registration, that I own this URL, keep that close. We host hundreds of websites for clients from all over the world. And we own the domain registration for 2 of them because they just could not do it on their own, too many people and everything else. And it's very special situations. That's it. Everybody else owns theirs. Does that mean that I have access and shared access across like 15 different providers? Absolutely. But that's what we do as a vendor, because ultimately, I don't want you locked into us, right? One of the biggest things that we've said with Iowa Computer Gurus over the years is we want our customers to stay with us because they like us, because we're providing them good value. I don't want you to be with me because I own the keys to your castle and you can't go anywhere else.
Right.
And so if you don't know where this is, if you don't know where those assets are, if you don't know what account you're in, look it up, because I'm running through it with another client right now. They're a longstanding client. They paid for the domain registration for 4 years, which is awesome, right? Secure it. Their domain expires in April of 2026. We know where it is registered. We have no idea what email address or what account it's registered under. That process alone, we're 2.5 weeks in, multiple emails back and forth with support. Here's the domain. Here's all the things we know. It's nice, right? We host it so we can tell them all kinds of information about it points here, and this is why it points here, and here's some of these things. But we still don't have access. So we figured that out, thankfully, right? Well ahead of that domain registration.
Yeah, lesson learned. Don't wait till April 20th when you're
exactly right. Other work that we were doing, we were able to do it. And our primary contacts, each one of them went to that provider and was like, I forgot my password, because first thing you do, right? Oh, I know it's over here at GoDaddy. I'm going to put in my email, forgot password. Oh,
how often does that happen?
Right? Yeah. But then you're going to support. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing is just getting out ahead of it and realizing that, just like you lock your car, just like you lock your house for the most part, if you live in the Midwest, whatever. But, the way you protect your other assets in life, we want to make sure that you think of your domain and other things, because, for a few of our customers in 2025, it's been a pretty rough year. Right. And, for a small business to lose their hosted domain and to lose their identity in the internet that they've been spending all of this energy on building, is really hard to come back from that. And in this day and age where the person that's trying to make a decision is going to pull you up, vet you, want to click to your website to get information, if they don't get you, what they're going to do, they're going to hit back in their browser and they're going to go down to the next search result.
And it's that quick. It's within seconds. I mean, people make a decision now with so much information and data online. If they don't see it when they click, they're just moving on. And, it's interesting, since you and I started talking about this with my new customer consultations, it's one of the first things I talk about now, not just the content, about what's happening on your website, because whatever's on there, it's not going to matter if you don't own that domain.
It's very interesting. And, to keep things short for today, we're talking domains, but this week alone, we had a similar situation arise with the actual social media accounts. Who owns the Facebook page? Who owns the LinkedIn page? Who owns the Instagram account?
Right.
The same concept applies to those items as well. These tools all have these shared access abilities. I can add somebody else. You can even add them as a co-administrator if you really want and trust them. But the idea being is knowing where those live. And it's fun to hear that you've kind of created a bit of a checklist on your own of just,
Mm,
"Hey, do you guys know?" Because we do that now as well. Sometimes it's because I need to make changes. We
right.
need to make changes to the domain to move somebody to Azure, but I don't want you to give it to me necessarily. I just want to make sure that because it's also really fun sometimes when people don't understand the technology and we understand that not everybody wants to know the ins and outs of it. But
Right.
then when they don't know, and then I have to be the one to say, well, this expired.
Mm.
It's nothing to do with what we're doing. It's very hard because that puts us into a situation that's not great.
Yeah, I
Well,
think that's a great topic for another day too, Mitch, about, who are you giving access to on your social media accounts and what ultimately happens. But really good points.
absolutely. That's actually a really good idea for another
Yep.
topic. We'll have to keep
Mhm.
that in mind. Well, it has been great to have you today, Laurie. Is there
Thank you.
anything that you want to say in closing, to others as they're looking at, their domain assets and the things that they should be controlling? Any words of advice that we haven't talked about today?
No, I think you've nailed it. You've got to own your assets, and know how to get to them. And if you have any questions, you should definitely be reaching out to professionals, like yourself. And it's the first thing you should be doing before you're worrying about anything else.
Well, awesome. I really, really appreciate you joining
Great to
me
be here.
today. And for those of you watching, subscribe for future content. If you have a horror story that you want to share or you want to talk about that you think would be beneficial for others, comment, send an email, reach out. We'd love to have you on a future episode of the Tech Vault.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.